Now it's better. Speed it out.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Today is July 23rd. We're listening to George Michael because today I have coffee on my shirt. Today, George Michael's Careless Whisper, one of the best songs I believe that was ever written, was released in 1984. That was 40 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Time flies when you're whispering carelessly. How are you doing right now?
I'm doing good.
Good.
It's rainy over here where I am.
It's raining. It's a nice day. Today is National Lemon Day. Do you have a lemon?
Yeah, actually, I love lemon and water.
Yeah.
So I got my usual ones floating on the top, but
Wonder why.
it's pretty good.
When we go to restaurants, we usually get unsweetened iced tea with lemon or water with lemon. We are lemon fans. I love lemon too. Lemon meringue pie is my favorite pie.
Did you know that lemons are the oldest citrus fruit? I was excited to say that.
That's crazy. Where are they from? Like Rome or something? Somewhere in Europe.
That sounds right. But it is 2,500. What is it? Let's pull it up because I'm national.
While you pull it up, I'll talk about lemon meringue pie. I also like key lime pie, but the last one I had wasn't that good. I don't know. I think my grandmother made them by scratch. That's why they're so good.
All right, so I got the facts here.
Tell us. Teach us.
All right. Citron is found in a Persian garden near Jerusalem, said to be at least 2,500 years old.
Crazy. So that's where
sometime between the last 1st century BC and the early 1st century AD, citron made its way to Rome.
That's where the name citrus is from.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? There's so many benefits too for lemons.
I love citrus, lemons, oranges, grapefruit.
We have to talk about this National Day, even though we didn't put it on here.
What is it? Oh, the Grandma Day?
Oh my gosh, I forgot to say it, but it is Gorgeous Grandma Day. So shout out to all the gorgeous grandma. I gotta send my mom a text. It's all the grandmas out there that are, let's read it because I'm not really sure. Recognizing all the women who embrace the age of a grandma, whether they're grandmothers or not, Gorgeous Grandma Day embraces and encourages all women to flaunt their granny attitudes. Granny. Isn't that a crazy word? I was going to take a picture and tell my mom, Happy Granny Day. Wait, that's the granny they chose. Put it back. All right.
A little too much. That's too much going on. Too much on her.
Yeah, she's definitely doing a lot.
Yeah, and times have changed. If you think about my microphone's not even on. I was going to say times have changed so much. Like grandmas, how we know them and knew them are different now because they're using technology, Facebook, Twitter. They have their own website sometimes. I think our clients become older sometimes. You're like, wow, they're hip or they're online. So the grandmas that were used to going to bingo and casinos and just watching TV are no longer. They're everywhere. Grandmas are everywhere. There's so many ads on that site every time I go away. Anyways, but today is also, and goes along with our color, yellow, National Lemon Day. So shout out to lemons. Hey, lemons, if you need a website, we're here. Look at all the things it does. Kills weeds, removes stains, shines chromes, remove odors, keeps squirrels away, keep white clothes clean. Never heard of that. Remove scratches and wood. Digestion, inflammation of the joints, and bad breath. And you can stick a lemon on like the garbage disposal to make it smell
Yeah. Yeah. I know about that trick.
All right. Now that we know about lemons, let's go into the subject. Squeezing the most of your WordPress site. Get it? Like a lemon. Yeah. So we handle a lot of.
Don't be a lemon.
I'll just turn into a lemon. We handle a lot of WordPress sites, and you go tell them. I can't even take
so
a
there's
joke.
a saying out there. I'm sure everyone knows it, but don't be a lemon. It's like meaning like don't be imperfect, unsatisfied, a defect. Usually when people are purchasing cars, I've heard it like don't buy a lemon. You don't want to buy something that's defective. Same with like a website. You don't want to have a defective website. So
Yeah, lemon is known as a defective thing. That's a lemon or a dud or whatever. But they say when life gives you lemons, right? So,
lemonade.
yep. So we're going to go over a couple of the best practices for keeping or even making, if you have a slow website right now, WordPress website especially. Some of these will go with any website, but a lot of things that I'll be mentioning and Raina will be mentioning will be for proprietary towards WordPress. But some of them go along with any platform or anything that's on the web, really. First one being, if you do page speed, if you're into that kind of stuff and you run it, usually the first one is next gen image formats not served, So one of the best things you can do, especially as sites get wider and bigger, so do the pictures. Pictures get bigger and file size gets bigger. So you have to compress those images and make them into something that is more modern. Whether it be, I use tinypng or tinyjpeg.com. That's where you can drag an image and it will spit out a WebP format or compress the image. You can also do it in Photoshop or any of those apps. SVG, though, is the best. Anything that is PNG will have transparency. Those are usually the biggest files. Then it goes down to JPEG. There's also AVIF, which I have not yet to use, and WebP, which is probably the industry standard right now. I'm going to get my words right today. But then there's SVG, which are vector images, which do not really hold a file size besides the text that it takes to create the image. So if you look at an SVG image, you open it up in a code editor or a text editor, all you see are paths, and they're just mathematical, and says this path connects to this path, and this path is this color, and this is the width of the path. So that's how it becomes so small compared to a large image. And if you open up an image in a text editor or a code editor, you see code too. I don't know if a lot of people don't know that. You can open up an image you take on your phone, put it into a text editor, and see a bunch of gobbledygook. But it doesn't do anything. Like if you edit it, things will happen with the picture, but it's not like an SVG where you can add classes to paths. You can modify things right there. So it's really lightweight. Image optimization, very important, probably one of the most important, especially with the mobile trend of going on your phone to go on websites. You don't want to, if people are on LTE or not Wi-Fi, so you want to make your images as small as possible, right?
Right. Another tip, really, or optimization for your website is implementing caching solutions. So there's a lot of different things that you can use. I mean, there's, just to name a few, there's plugins like 10Web, WP Rocket, Auto Optimize. Used to use Auto Optimize a lot, but then switched to WP Rocket for some clients because we found it more effective in more of a comprehensive solution to certain things, or just the old-fashioned way, which is like, but the most effective really is just manually deferring the scripts. And that doesn't require a plugin, even though certain plugins, they do have fields to be able to defer. So it does provide a way to do it. But if you want to not use a plugin, there are other options out there that you can still optimize. But for everyone out there, mostly to help with the efficiency and streamlining, and because you can, it's there. WP Rocket is usually a good one that we usually use.
Yeah, 10Web is, I put that there, but it has messed up a lot of sites, and it's not like they're not fixable. You can always go in and maybe even with the settings of the plugin say don't compressed JavaScript, which usually that's where the problems run. But sometimes it takes more work than it's worth. But 10web does give great, crazy scores. Like it'll bump up a 30 score to a 99 like that. For what cost? We're not really sure. It depends on the site. Some of them are the cost of the site not working. So you don't want that.
Yeah, and another important point there is that anytime because there's so many settings and you're optimizing, it's always good to take a backup. It's always good to know what you're clicking and review and test the site after to see if anything breaks because really you might not see it at the moment, but once you clear the cache, things will be broken. So testing is so important when you're optimizing.
Yeah, in addition to having a backup, also having a way and a knowledge to know how to restore is the second part of that. I feel like I've heard people say, "Oh, I took a backup," and then like, "Can you restore it?" And then you can't restore it. So can't have one without the other. Minimizing, that's another one, CSS and JavaScript. So in a file, CSS file or JavaScript, there's a bunch of text and it tells the browser how to display something or what to do. When you leave extra space, which sounds silly, there's more file size, right? You have extra spaces and tabs. So a compressed file will be one line usually. So all the code is on one line. It's unreadable. You're not going to go in there unless there's an emergency, which I've done, and try to find something in this big blob of matrix looking text. But the browser can read it a lot faster. It can load it a lot faster and be done with it. Otherwise, if you have this uncompressed file, it takes longer, and it might only be very quick, like a second, but a second in comparison to a half a second over the course of many visitors and users does add up, especially with server side. Sass, I use Sass when I use for CSS, and it can compress right away. So as I write the Sass, it compiles it into a .css file that WordPress uses and reads, and it's all one line. So automatically. Otherwise, we'd have to do it manually and go in there and compress it or use a plugin. And one thing I want to say about compression, there's a lot of code that can go into additional CSS or the customizer in WordPress, but I've found most recently that having anything in there, not even just uncompressed, but anything that is telling the browser slows down the site. So I say get your code out of the customizer, even though it's easy. Of course, it's easy, and put it in there and test and stuff. But for the next round or sprint or however we do it like that, we say, okay, now we're going to get next week. We'll say, here's the new sprint. So for us, we'll take everything out. We'll say no more code inside the customizer, no more code inside the additional CSS, because it does slow the site down. Not only is it not compressed, but it's loading somewhere else, separate from the compressed CSS. So the end.
All right, so you touched on the minimizing CSS and JavaScript. And another thing that you can really utilize is CDNs, so Content Delivery Network. And there are a lot of different solutions. Cloudflare is one of the more popular ones, and it really just serves bigger files closer and faster to the viewer and helps with a more robust page performance optimization. There's so many different things in Cloudflare. There's so many different settings that can be configured to optimize your site. And it's kind of its own beast, really. But Cloudflare is the one that I usually use. What about you, Tony?
I like to live on the edge and don't use CDNs. No, with our WP engine, we actually have CDN Cloudflare caching included with our package. So when we offer hosting too, it actually comes along with it, which does not come along with the traditional hosting of WP engine. We pay more money for it, and it automatically will CDN the bigger files. But yeah, if it's coming to caching, Cloudflare is the go-to. I don't really use any other ones, just because if you think about what actually CDN is, it's delivering a file to a person in the closest proximity. So the company that's going to have the most closest proximity and ability to do that is probably AWS and Cloudflare and Amazon. You know what I mean? So the more money, the more. But there's other ones out there, and I'm sure they're cheaper. Cloudflare is not that expensive, but it depends on how much the files are being accessed, and it says 1 cent, 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents. It's pretty cheap, but if you have a big site that has a lot of visitors, it's not cheap. Optimizing your WordPress database. That's another one. Databases can get really crazy. Some plugins. So when you install a plugin on a WordPress site, it can, and it usually does, write tables to the database. If that plugin doesn't have any sort of deletion action attached to it, such as deleting the tables once you delete the plugin, you're going to be left with a bunch of unused, extra bulky stuff inside of your database. So there's a bunch of tools out there. There's a manual way of actually going into your PHP MyAdmin and looking and saying, I don't want these. That's kind of crazy, really living on the edge. But there's a lot of plugins out there that will delete transients, which are like cached or database cache like settings. A lot of plugins that will go through your database and say, these are not being used anymore, these tables. Some plugins that'll say, there's actually one plugin that does all of this. Our cat's meowing. He's singing the song of his people. There's other plugins that'll say there's drafts and revisions that are inside of the database, and you don't need them. Say if you have a page you keep working on, it stores all that in the database. It says, here's a version when you saved it, here's an auto-save version. And if you don't have any sort of control over that, it can save up to hundreds of them. And the way I edit pages sometimes, save, it can add up. So deleting that can and will optimize your website.
All right. So we talked about a lot about just optimizations and things you can do, but really what it comes down is your server, right? Because you can do all these things, but if you have a server that takes a long time to load or is being shared and things like that, you really have to go to the foundation of it all. So reducing your server response time, and sometimes the solution is to get a new server. Sometimes you can do as much optimizations and nothing seems to work. Then you know that you need a new, more robust solution. So that's when getting something that fits your website and what you're looking to do when it comes to page performance is definitely needed. But before you go to that option, you can start by just doing a plugins audit, looking at things and saying, okay, do we really need this on the site? What can we get rid of and delete any unused plugins? Just kind of do a full audit and be able to see if that helps with any page performance. And if not, then we need to look at it from a solution standpoint and finding a better server.
Yep. Two things to add to that too. There have been times where a site has been configured perfectly, lightweight, low level, and it runs horribly on one server, and you move it, and then it's like a fast 99 on a new server. So definitely server related issues exist with DreamHost, no offense, DreamHost, and other very cheap ones. And there's a reason why it's cheap, because you're shared with hundreds of others on a server. But also the deleting plugins, which I mentioned on our show before, our sitcom. Even when plugins are deactivated, they still cause delays. Really, it's crazy, and I did not believe it was true. I still don't, but it's true that when you have plugins in there and they're deactivated, they can affect the front end of your website and the public view. Which still, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even include scripts in there. Something's in there. We should probably do a deep dive into that. But
yeah, and just on that, even though it's not the same topic, but just like if you have a plugin that's deactivated, it can still be hacked. And even though when you're troubleshooting and trying to figure out what's wrong or where the file is infected, you got to look everywhere, even on the deactivated plugins, because a lot of the times we've seen it there.
Yep, that's a good point. Lazy loading. I felt lazy yesterday morning. I stayed up really late. But anyways, loading. Lazy loading is where
So you were lazy loading when you were waking up yesterday?
Yeah, I was lazy loaded this morning too. 7 a.m. Like, am I loaded yet?
Like we're robots.
We are. Lazy loading is where image or something, video, asset, anything like that, doesn't load until it's lazy. It's like, I'm just relaxed. Oh, I gotta react. So when you get to that part of the page, that's where it shows. That can save. It could also destroy sites. I've seen it many times where there's some other script running and you do lazy load and then no images load. So, but when done right, lazy loading can improve the site load and the site experience, because things at the bottom of the page aren't loading and affecting the things at the top of the page by delaying their loading, right? So lazy loading, it's a technique. Sometimes it's unnecessary. Honestly, I think if you are compressing your images, like the first thing we talked about, or using SVGs, some of that you don't really need to do it. Actually, people scroll fast. I was looking at our hard drives the other day and like they'd have never seen that image. We don't have image loading. I mean, lazy loading on our site. We don't need it because our site's fast and our images are small, but they'd have never seen it because they scroll so fast. So I don't know. Be wary with that one. I don't think it's like as necessary as it used to be anymore. Lazy loading, unless it's really, really big.
Yeah, it seems like it was a super trend a few years ago, but I feel like it causes more disconnect with user experience where things are loading a little bit too lazily or whatever. And I don't know, we haven't really used many that feature settings within our clients.
Yeah, I think it's good for things like those galleries that are like if you have a grid gallery and then there's a bunch of images loading on the page. But even those are kind of I don't want to say old school. We're saying these things that are like really like passionate and don't use lazy load and no more galleries. Obviously these things exist, but we do see less and less of them, and I believe there is a reason behind that. So leave it at that. Lazy loading, be lazy or don't be lazy. Either one.
All right. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Choosing a fast and reliable hosting provider. So making sure to choose a solution that really has proven success with really, for us, what's important is service and having support if your hosting goes down or anything like that. So having maintenance is super important. So making sure that your hosting provider is key. I'm drawing a blank. Jump in. Help me.
What I was really going, it's like
throw out my safety net.
If all this stuff doesn't, if all this stuff is over your head or whatever, we provide these services, maintenance to get the site up to speed in terms of images. We provide hosting that already has CDN and caching. So if you're on a server, if you don't know what you're doing, if you need help, what I was going to say is we can handle all this stuff for you.
Okay, yeah. I saw that. I didn't know what you meant by that note.
I don't even know what I meant.
Tony wrote a note in our secret doc.
It's in Chinese.
So I was like, he can explain this better than I can.
Yeah, so I mean, those are the tips. There's many things you can do. There's many things you shouldn't do, or you could do, but you shouldn't, and vice versa. But WordPress sites can usually, and they are extremely fast, but there's a lot of stuff that you add onto it or where it is hosted that go into play when it talk about speed of it. So WordPress itself, fast. Hands in the soup, becomes slow. So
yeah, once you start adding and
yeah,
that's when things really get logged down and can really create issues.
Yep. So there's definitely ways around that, and hopefully we covered some of those. We practice all these, maybe besides lazy loading, half of the time. It depends. If it ever comes up and there's a many image on the site, of course we're going to do that. But a lot of these sites have been more minimal in terms of we don't really need all these images. You want to get the information across. You want your site to load fast. You don't want to rely on plugins. You just want to get the user there, converted, or whatever the goal is, and out of there. Nobody has patience for waiting for images. Anyways, I just want to say today is the day that Amy Winehouse died in 2011. She was 27 Club.
Oh, I loved her.
Alcohol poisoning, yeah.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. You know, the new Amy Winehouse.
Who's the new one?
Ray.
Oh, she definitely had to be inspired by Amy Winehouse
She's
because
like
her style is so similar. The way she sings.
Yeah, she's like reincarnated. I know she's not old enough to be reincarnated because that would make her 13 years old. Her soul has been reincarnated. You should check out Ray if you haven't heard it. Raye. I'm torn on it. I kind of like it a lot, but I also kind of don't like it a lot. I feel like the
Different.
switch. Yeah, she goes from like pop to this old school, jazz.
Yeah, it's so starkly different.
Within a song too. So to me, it almost feels like things
Two
are
songs.
stuck in there. Yeah, but it is. I like them separately. I would like to listen to each one and say, let's not go that route for this one and whatever. I'm not her manager or her songwriter, so I have no say in it. But Ray,
Yeah.
shout out to me, a songwriter.
It's definitely different. It's a different flavor and a different style, but I don't know. I guess if it works for her,
Yeah.
then keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, she's popular.
She has her own following, so.
Yeah. So.
Go Ray!
Hooray! I like her music. I'm not a hater. So, anything you want to say? You want a final word today on our
Final word.
Hold on, I gotta get ready. Let me mute myself. I had to put some music on in the background.
Oh,
You're good to go.
okay. Today's final word is to turn your lemon of a website into lemonade by using these tips on how to optimize your site. There's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of things that you can try really to get the most out of your site. So follow these starter tips and it'll definitely get you more results because it has given our clients results. And if you need any assistance with implementing, just reach out to us, but don't be a lemon.
Don't be a lemon.
That's the final word.
Yeah, don't be a lemon.
Or don't have a lemon website.
Just have a lemon water, like Reno. I like the at the end.
Drink some lemons.
Drink
some lemon water.
You ever hear the Led Zeppelin song, Lemon? Squeeze the Lemon. It's a cool song.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I don't know it.
It's very like sensual. All right, let's get out of here. Let's play our outro, which also sometimes it's our intro, sometimes it's our middle thing, sometimes it's the outro. It's always the same video though.
I think we should a surprise. I want to do a video. My take.
Okay, yeah.
On an outro, because that's like our intro, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If we have a separate one that's different.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll play it out and you can create one for me. I was thinking, actually, it's funny you said that because I was like, hey, I should do a Tony's last word. So sometimes we have like Tony.
Or yeah, then why don't you do a screen where we both have our last words?
Tony Arena's last words. All right, yeah. All right, we'll figure that out. Meeting. All right. Have a great day. Enjoy your Tuesday. Enjoy your life. And
why is it like the end times? Enjoy your life. Good luck.
It's been real. We've
end.
enjoyed our time with you on this earth.
Oh, can you stop?
I gotta take off Raina's final word. All right, play us out, Raina.
That's Tony's final word.
I actually set it up. If you snap your fingers and the video comes on, it was a setting on here. Did you try it?
No. Oh, that's cool.
It's not really. I just pressed the button.